greenhouse effect will change the climate. It's going to take our weather patterns to more extremes more frequently. But using computer models to predict the future, we're only just beginning to discover how it will change our lives.
Already, skiing in Victoria has been described as likely to become uneconomic by 2030. There'll be a longer bushfire season, and in some areas the likelihood of these tragic natural disasters will be increased.
In Victoria, the gradual warming will reduce the incidence of winter chill. Now, you need that to set the fruit for cherries, peaches and the like. But it will also mean that there's a longer growing season and less frost, conditions that will suit a whole new range of tropical crops.
Even though the computer models predict that the warming effect will be less pronounced in the tropics, here along the shoreline of the Northern Territory, it's the rising oceans that'll be the worry. Some of this region's most fragile areas will be first eroded and then inundated.
Sydney's weather is likely to be stormier, with quite possibly more convective thunderstorms in summer.
We can also expect more tropical cyclones, and they'll be up to 20% more intense than the ones we experience now. And that's not all. A whole new section of the Australian coastline will be in their path. It's possible the area where they occur could shift several hundred kilometres south.
The island state is likely to warm slower than the mainland, but there remains a very strong hunch that Tasmanians may well be joined by hordes of sun-seeking holidaymakers from the north.
It may well be that people will want to go to beaches, if the climate gets warmer, beaches which are now regarded as too cold. We might all be going to Tasmania for our holidays rather than to Queensland.
The greenhouse effect certainly has the potential to turn our very lucrative tourism business on its ear. But the industry faces other, far more tangible dangers. $6.5 billion. That's what the tourism industry generated last year. It was our biggest export earner. There's a growing realisation that this country really is one of the world's last great paradises. Many visitors come here just to see our quite stunning wilderness areas. But while increasing numbers might be good for the industry, we've got to balance the promise of more dollars against the prospect of increasing pressure on our delicate ecosystems. Environmental planning will ensure the wonderful sounds and sights of Australia won't disappear. But as an industry, tourism may have to make some concessions along the way.
In the last 2 years, we've witnessed the extraordinary growth of a new and extremely powerful religion. The Green movement is now recognised more for its quite considerable political clout than for placards and protesters. It's been useful in identifying the problems. Now we need solutions.
Every year, Australians throw away more than 10 million tonnes of rubbish. That's around 700 kilos per person. But it can be turned into profit.
That's what a very small Brisbane company is doing, going through our garbage as part of a revolutionary process that's on the edge of solving one of the world's great environmental problems. Household rubbish and what we do with it.
The process transforms household waste into a usable building product by combining the rubbish with clay and quite simply cooking it. It's non-toxic and ready to be used. Nutrelysis Industries is selling the technology overseas, supplying equipment for plants and taking a royalty for every tonne of garbage processed. The system also generates excess energy, electricity or steam. That facet alone could make these plants a necessity by 2020.
We're using up the fossil fuels about 1 million times as fast as they are produced.
It is the most critical factor in our lifestyle, and using traditional economic forecasts, in 30 years we'll be using 3 or 4 times as much of it. The consequences are absurd. We will have to change.
We won't automatically clear anything that stands in the way of the car. We won't build tunnels under harbours and new bridges and new roads to allow still more cars to get into urban centres. We'll have realised, like most countries around the world, that the private car with one occupant is a very inefficient means of transport. My personal view is that we would probably value oil properly if we paid something like $2 a litre for motor spirit rather than something like 60 cents.
$2 a litre could be a very good price in a world where the fossil fuel supplies are near exhaustion. That sort of pressure will eventually make alternative energy sources cost-effective.
The bulk of our water will come from the same places it does today.
It'll look very much like it looks now. It'll taste very much like it tastes now. In many areas it may be more salty, but it will be more expensive.
We pour most of our domestic water supply on our gardens and lawns, a luxury many will simply be unable to afford in the future. Gardens will begin vanishing in places like Perth, which already faces a water shortage, as other options become more appealing. The idea was originally ridiculed, but not anymore. The massive blocks contain the purest water on the planet. It's well over 100,000 years older than the word pollution. And that's not a bad marketing line for a new range of bottled water from a most original source.
I'd bet that in the year 2020 we'll be using iceberg water even in modest quantities.
Next, the stunning future awaiting us.
I would say I'm very envious.
And what we have to do to get it.